going live, and so you're going to check my volume. We overhauled the studio today, so the lighting's a little off. And for those of you that, when I talk about the studio, it's called OBS. It's an OBS studio. So there, I think that looks a little better on the stream. So the sound is good. We had some sound issues before. I already put that down.
Oh,
I already had unit. It's okay.
yeah.
I already fixed it. Thanks. Okay, so yeah, I think we're ready to go. We almost canceled the show. We did have to cancel with Ryan from Cultastic. We had her scheduled for tonight, so we might schedule her for Saturday, perhaps. I'm still working on my Zoom, so OBS is it's a virtual studio that you can download it to your laptop for free. I think you can donate to them, whoever built it. It's kind of a freeware. Very popular on YouTube. A lot of YouTubers use it, probably because it is free. And it's, I think it's like a Unix-based thing, so they can really add segments to it and improve it along the way. But it's quite overwhelming when we get started with it to see how so to get into it. It's like, I don't know, it's like the first time you got your smartphone and it was overwhelming. Let's say you went from, if you're my age, you went from an analog phone, a cell phone, to these smartphones with your computer and everything on the smartphone. That was overwhelming. But after a while, you use it enough. It's like driving a car, riding a bike. So that's kind of how it's getting for us with this OBS. We've been doing it, and the more we do use it, and we can make it better. So one of the things new that I'm doing tonight, you notice there was no music or any of that kind of stuff. So I've got the studio stripped right down bare. I don't have any of that stuff in it anymore, but I can load it back in. And so what we're trying to do is get our Zoom capture working, and we're still working on that. We did one Zoom, and it worked okay, but I didn't have it set up quite right. There's what they call virtual cables inside the computer software, if you work with soft computers and this kind of thing. So we loaded the virtual cables in. We kind of had it working today, but then there was a glitch, so we had to cancel that meeting. So today we're going live anyways. We're not going to stop the show because of that. It's kind of like if you're an ex-Jehovah's Witness, it's like showing up at the Kingdom Hall and you're sitting there and you say, "Oh, I got a part tonight," and you got to go up to the stage and you got to give a 45-minute part or a big part in the meeting that night. What do? Well, that's kind of where I'm at with you guys. What do? I ask you guys as the audience for some help. So we have K-Fred online. Hello, K-Fred. Now, K-Fred's from, let me think here, Oregon. Oregon, right? Oregon? And if I can remember correctly, K-Fred is... No, I won't give your age over the internet. I will give you some privacy. But we've known K-Fred now for quite some time. And we're looking for some topics for tonight. So if you were to do a live, we could either not show up for this live, but look at all you guys. You're all online. There's 9 people online. And some people are getting involved in the chat. K-Fred is 57. Well, K-Fred would be a couple years younger than me. So we went to the same school of thought. a lot of our users, YouTube's very educated, or very snoopy, but YouTube knows a lot of information, and it gives us a chart, and it tells us how many percentages of our users are this age, how many are this age, and how many are this age. And my good wife and I were sitting there this morning looking at it, and we have some young viewers now on looking at some of our stuff. We were surprised, in the 18 to 24-year-old. We're a small percentage, but most of the viewers are my age, our age. And I can understand that, because when I was younger, I didn't have time to really look at YouTube and stuff. I was too busy making a living, feeding a family, chasing down meetings, going out in the ministry and things like that. We didn't have time. But even if I was outside of the watchtower, I would still be young. If I was younger, I would still be busy. And sometimes we get older and we complain and we say, well, why hasn't the kids come to see me? Why haven't, so we start thinking, well, we were like that at one time when we were in our 30s, or we were busy, and life was happening, and pretty soon years goes by, or whatever. Time goes by and we don't talk to our parents, and it's no big deal. But now we're at the other end, we're getting older, and we see all of this around us. And sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. So who else do we have online? We have ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, Yes Man. Welcome. Greetings from Colorado. Hello. Blue Rose. And ex-Jehovah's Witness, Yes Man, just turned 62 today. Well, we're all in the same club. So happy birthday. So we'll sing a happy birthday. We'll have to go online and get you a happy birthday song. You actually lived through 1975. Wow. So you were ex-Jehovah's Witness through that. That's interesting. Interesting. So Tammy G, how you doing, Tammy? And so SDR, welcome. And High on Holy Ghost, Washington State. Pardon me?
It's a great name.
The High on the Holy Ghost?
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Ex-Jehovah's Witness, Yes Man. So what we said, if you came to the Kingdom Hall and you've realized you got a part, and you're sitting in your seat, right? And you come into the Kingdom Hall and you shake hands and hi, how's it going? You think nothing. You're carrying your case. Your family comes in behind you. You get up, you sing the song like you're all prepared, and you're sitting there, and they announce your name, and Brother Hool, can you give the next part? And I was daydreaming through the first part. I didn't even look at my Kingdom ministry. And Brother Hool, can you come up and give the next part? So you walk up, you bring your case up. Like, I didn't even have time to say I wasn't prepared. I forgot about it. Can you take this for me? I knew nothing about this part. And I walk up there, and I pull out the Kingdom ministry to even see what the hell the part was, because I didn't prepare it. I didn't prepare any of this stuff half the time. So I don't know how you guys were when you were Jehovah's Witnesses, but have any of you guys ever been in that situation? I'm watching the comments, so if you have, how many of you guys have been in Jehovah's Witness, and how many? Probably most are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Because that's what it says, ex-Jehovah's Witness, Yes Man. And that's what we were, as Yes Men. So I'll tell you, at that moment they called me up to give this part, I felt like saying, no man, no man. But I was a Yes Man, and I walked up and I delivered that part. I still have nightmares over stuff like that. Now, I did a little bit of preparation here. I'm not going to fool you too hard. I'm going to look through some of my stuff here. I didn't prepare too much. And but what's kind of nice is the Watchtower Help Club has Once I got onto that guy's site, pretty well all my work's done for me. All I have to do is read off little pieces of his site. And I found that, and you have probably found that too, if you do a little bit of research and you go to some of these websites and blogs, Jehovah's Witness blogs, there's a lot of information out there. If we had to do a spontaneous part, there's so much information out there, you could deliver it on pretty well any subject you want. Now, the part that I was going to talk about tonight was about Jesus. And I'm trying out my new studio here, so I can do a transition over. And I'm just going to look here, and I can do that one. So I can play with my transitions here a little bit, but I should have had this prepared a little bit better here. But I'm just going to resize this display here. Yeah, and because we don't have to capture all the advertising. And we're going to open to the Bible Stories book, actually. The Jehovah's Witness site. And yeah, I think that's about it. Okay. I'll do a transition here. There. Now you should see the most of the Bible Stories book. So we're going to talk about this Bible Stories here, where Jesus cleans out the temple, and then we're going to look at it in the 4 different Gospels from not the JW Bible. It doesn't really matter the points that we're getting. But the point that we're getting here is when you look at Jesus, what do you guys know about Jesus? And the more I've been learning about Jesus, the more I've been getting a different viewpoint, a different idea who Jesus could be, because no one's really clear on it. You know, outside of the Jehovah's Witness, if you're Jehovah's Witness, you're so clear on everything. Everything is so crystal clear. Because you have the governing body, and the governing body speak directly to God. So everything is so clear, and there's so many magazines to explain everything. But when you get outside of the religion, all of a sudden everything is cloudy, and everything is so unclear, because now you to get out, you've realized a few things. You realize that you've been fooled along the way. And you were in a cognitive state when you were in there, and you somehow crawled out. And then you realize that you've been tricked, or perhaps you were in it and you were you were victimized somehow, and that's what got you out. You know, there's different ways that you get out. Anyways, once we get out of the Jehovah's Witness religion, all of a sudden everything's cloudy. And for me it was. I don't know if it was for everyone, if it is for everyone, but for me it was cloudy, and the only thing that was clear is that I was fooled. I was fooled for a lot of years by this religion. You know, they call it a religion, you know, at least. Even today they call it a religion because they give these religions charity status. You don't hear of governments giving cults charity status, and this is what I guess where we're at now is the Jehovah's Witness really a religion, or is it a cult? And they started calling it a cult back in 1992. They identified it under a cult, and that's where a few people have written some books around cults, and the guy that wrote the Bite model. And they classified the Jehovah's Witnesses actually as a high control cult. And the reason outside of the religion, getting outside of the religion, it's really easy to see today. And put aside the 1914, put aside all the false doctrines, because you could look at any of the religions and say they all have false doctrines or they're all kind of guessing at things. But put aside all of those things, here we're in a religion that is asking me to give my life away unnecessarily, like a blood transfusion, for instance. And this religion has had so many changes on blood transfusions. In fact, they didn't really get into this whole no blood transfusion thing until Rutherford, and it's definitely not Russell. But they weren't really doing blood transfusions in a big way back then, I guess, in all fairness. But now there's there's estimates of over 1,000 Jehovah's Witnesses every year giving their lives up for no blood, and yet it's okay. It's a religion. We can grant them charity. We can help them build kingdom halls. And they do a lot of good things. A hurricane happens, they come over and they help rebuild their kingdom halls. Now, then we look at the death cult, and that's what we looked at last Saturday. The death cult in Nigeria. And here they unburied, 225 people so far, this death cult. And it's the worst thing, and it's a horrific thing, and it's just so awful, this death cult. Well, it's only 225 people so far. Jehovah's Witnesses have buried, with this doctrine, 1,000 people. You see, the death cult just says quit eating, and you're going to be in paradise. Jehovah's Witness, the governing body, says, well, don't take blood and you'll be with us in paradise. The same thing. I have to take my life. I have to give up my life because I could live with a blood transfusion. Let's say I was in an accident and I needed a quart of blood or something, pint of blood, or just to get my body pinched up and get everything all sewed back up, right? That's why they have emergency blood transfusions, right on the accident scene even, if you know your blood type. The best bracelet to have would be your blood type on your bracelet, not the no blood bracelet, but what your blood type is. That would be the best bracelet to have to save your life. Now, carrying on, looking at Jesus, and looking at Jesus through the Jehovah's Witness lens, or looking at Jesus through the just standing back outside of the religions and looking at Jesus through a lot of different lenses. Because now, like for me, I have this Jehovah's Witness lens. I already know it. My wife beside me, she has a Catholic lens, so she has a different way of looking at Jesus, a little different. And then getting outside of it all, we now are looking at it through a different lens, a historical lens. We're going to history and looking at the Jesus figure in history. And we're finding out in history that Jesus was a figure that all the way through history, through the pagan history, Egyptians and Sumerians, and there was Jesus-type figures all the way through, and prophets and men that God, I'm assuming, would have sent, or maybe had something to do with these Jesus-type people all the way through history. So it's not just for the Christians. Once we get outside of Christian religion and just take a look in and look at it from a big scope, we can see that there's something more to it than just the Bible that we use. We just use this. I hope you don't use this one. This is the one that came out of my drawer, but we use this Bible, whatever one it is. And if we're in the Christian religion, that's our Bible. Now, outside of it, we look at Buddhism, for instance. There's some of that energy or some of the teachings there that are very similar to Christ. And you can look at some overlap there. I'm going to research this some more, and that's kind of where we're going with some of this spiritual research, we're calling it. But the that I have knowledge in is Jehovah's Witnesses. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm familiar with the website. I am working with other Bibles, and I'm working with this other site, the Watchtower Help Club, and we'll look at that. But for now, let's go back and look at Jesus here. We're going to look at Jesus and the 4 stories here. Jesus cleans out the temple. Now, when I think of Jesus, and I think when most of us think of Jesus, we think of him as a Jehovah's Witness, as a ransom sacrifice. But this is right from the Bible stories. So we taught our kids this. Jesus cleans out the temple. Jesus looks really angry here, doesn't he? Take a look at him. Does he look angry here? He looks like he's smiling, kind of, to me. So that was the Bible story. So I went over here. This is now for the adults. We're getting into the Jesus, the way, the truth, the life. This is a little bigger book. This isn't the Bible stories book. So let's see how they open up. You see Jesus here? Jesus shows zeal for true worship. So Jesus cleans the temple out. So this is the adult version. So after the wedding in Cana, Jesus heads to Capernaum. Jesus' mother and his half-brothers, James, Joseph, blah, 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 are traveling with him. But why does he go there? This city is more prominently situated. Who cares? Okay, Nazareth. They're not even really talking about what's going on there. Do you see anything there? During his stay in Capernaum, Jesus performs marvelous works. Well, now we're getting to the greasy stuff. While at the temple in Jerusalem, Jesus' disciples seen something about Jesus that is most impressive, different from what they have seen before. Okay. What did they see? They seen Jesus go apostate. He went completely apostate here. They've never seen this before. This is the Jewish temple. Like, this is the kingdom hall. This is the assembly hall. This is the district assembly where there's a lot of money changing going on. Okay, I want to talk about this. Did any of you online? I'm going to go back to my. Just look at the online stuff here. Just hold on here, because I can't do that unless you guys see it. But anyways, I can do this. I want to see if any of you guys online have ever handled money at the assemblies. Anybody? Give you guys about 20 seconds and come back to me. And we're gonna talk about this. I'm gonna come back and look. So we're gonna go back and look at these the adult story here. Okay. I can give you the let me see here, just a whole display here. But I think this is good here. Okay, so Jesus looks a bit more angry here, right? But over here, this is like he looks like he's smiling.
K-Fred says I have.
Oh, really? So K-Fred, you've run the money at the assemblies, right? So there's a lot of money being exchanged. I worked with, because it's always 2 brothers, right? And I was on the team 1 year when I was in good behavior. And I think you have to be a ministerial servant or an elder. I was a ministerial servant, so I got to work with an elder. And I think they assigned it by congregations. I'm not sure how they did it. I was a low peon. But I couldn't believe the amount of money that went through those boxes at the assembly halls. That was the day that they didn't have debit cards and stuff. And I don't know, probably today, and we're going to talk about this a little. We're going to go and look at JW.org about the money and how much money they're exchanging. Now, Jesus was really ticked off at the money changing. And I'm going to go back down to the story here. Okay, you wanted me to look over here? Okay, so Hops Crafts says, I put coins in the box. Yeah, we all did. Did you ever count the coins with the brothers and go into that little room where they just had a ton of brothers? So this one ex-Jehovah's Witness, yes man, you were a platform overseer for the assemblies and convention. That was a high up job. You must have been a good brother to get that job.
Did you see
Who?
SDR? Did you see what she said?
I'm a female. Yeah, very, very, very unfair. Like, you know what? If they had the sisters in there, then the brothers could get more out of the program. But the sisters had to beat the kids. So that's just the way. We're not going to get into any of this. But it was a big experience, I thought. Let's go back to the Jesus story. You know, how they handle the money. But could you imagine Jesus now coming into the assembly hall, the district assemblies where the most money is being transferred? Or let's say Jesus comes into New York Bethel and overturns their safes and stuff. I don't know where they keep their gold. And I know the society has a safe, and I know the society has gold in it. Lots of gold, lots of money, and lots of cash. Lots of cash that's unaccounted for by the taxman. And you know why I know that? Because Rutherford and Russell owned a gold mine. And when Russell died, they opened up his safe, and in today's whatever currency, there was 2.3 million in it. Rutherford had 2.3 million. He closed the safe up, and that was his 2.3 million. And he kept adding to that safe. How? Because at these district assemblies, people would come up to Russell and stick $30,000 check into his pocket, just because they liked him. They had let's say they had a big business. Because anytime you tell the audience that you speak to God, the audience believes you. Because remember, we learned on our last broadcast that we are wired to believe. All human beings are wired to believe in something. We want to believe. We want to believe that the religion that we're worshiping is speaking to God. If I'm at the assembly, I want to believe that the governing body is speaking to God. I want to believe that the program that I'm gleaning from this assembly is from God. And I think if we believe that the Bible's from God, then we would have to believe that some of the program was from God. But, you know, of course, it was slanted by men toward men. Like, there's no way God's telling you to take your life with a blood transfusion. But how many programs, assemblies, and watchtower meetings have we had telling us we should take our life if it comes to a blood transfusion? And we know that's wrong. So, you know, that's just one example. Now, we got off topic here. Jesus, we want to get to know Jesus a little better. Well, so far, I'm getting to know a side of him that he turned on the religion of his day. He went apostate. And when we go down here, and we're looking at the adult version here, what did they say here? He goes... He performs marvelous work. They see something about him that's different. So God's law calls upon the Israelites to make animal sacrifices at the temple, and visitors need food provisions during their stay. So the law allows for those traveling to Jerusalem from distant locations to bring money to spend on cattle, sheep, goats, and other things useful during their stay in the city. So God's law calls upon Jehovah's Witnesses to go to the district assembly and make sacrifices, because we don't do animal sacrifices today. We make monetary sacrifices. So we open our wallets and we put money into the contribution box. See, I'm just reading it from here, like how they would look at it. So the law allows for those traveling to Jerusalem, to the district assembly, to bring money and to spend on cattle, sheep, and goats. So you'd bring money and you'd spend it on food to eat. We used to travel 4 hours and get a hotel for 3 days because we go to the district assembly, and we would have to budget. We could not stay in the cheap motels. You know, there's always those cheap motels I wanted to stay at for $40 a night, but you couldn't stay at those because they weren't on the list. There was an approved list. And the cheapest darn hotel on the approved list was like $100. Always $100. $90 maybe if you're lucky. But always $100. And most of them were $150 a night. And they seem to like expensive hotels, the Watchtower. That's what I noticed. And then there was a few cheaper hotels, and if you didn't get on the list and you had to phone the hotel when the night the list is released, and we were living 4 hours away and the phones were jammed up at the hotels, and by the time you get through, all the cheap hotels were gone. And so all that was left was the $200 hotels. That's how it was, and it was, to me, that Jesus would have turned over these money tables. Why did we have to spend $200 on a hotel when I could have rented a $50 hotel? You know, it wasn't on the list. I couldn't figure that one out. Now, if you guys can figure that one out and you know the answer, I would like to know. If you're with the Watchtower and you're online watching and you've never commented before, this would be a good time to comment because I'm looking for answers on that one. So we go further here, and as a result, the merchants in Jerusalem, they sell the animals or the birds right inside the large courtyard of the temple. So what happens is when we go into the district assembly hall, the brothers are right there selling. When I was going, they were selling food coupons. And you'd have to buy food coupons, and you'd only have, they would have their own food thing there, and they were making their own meals when I started. That was back in the 80s. And then they went to a bagging system later where you had to bring your own bag of stuff. But for a long time, we had to buy the Watchtower's food at the assembly, the food that they made. So that was quite interesting. That was back in the 80s. So now you bring money to the assemblies. You want to buy new publications. So they say, well, it's based on a contribution. Well, I think they get more money with contributions, but I heard some other programs saying that they've been losing money. And the reason the Watchtower had to go to contributions versus selling the literature, when I started, they were selling the literature. It was 25 cents a magazine or something like that. 50 cents, I forget. But the books all had a cost. Everything had a cost. And there was a lot of money going on, a lot of money transferring going on. And the government said that you have to be taxable now. You're going to have to pay a portion of that in taxes. So the Watchtower said, okay, we're just going to go to contributions. No more charging. And that's what they did to get around the tax, the loophole. So now the Watchtower, they tell us, or at least they told us when I was in it, I was in it in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. I was in it all the way up to 2012. So you would be made to feel guilty if you didn't put money in to cover all the magazines, because the magazines weren't free. They told us that. The magazines weren't free. There was a cost to printing, blah, 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 blah. And so everyone would just contribute more. And then they would say, if you have more money to offset the ones in Africa that don't have as much money, that's what we need. We need more money to offset the others around the world. So you end up putting in as much as you can. It reminds me of what's going on here. This whole story, what's going on in this whole story. So, filled with indignation, Jesus pours out the coins of money changers, overturns their tables, and drives the men out. And then Jesus says, take these things away from here and stop making the house of my Father commerce. So, is that what Jesus did? He did something else. They downplayed it here, because I'm going to go back to the kids' book, and the kids' book actually told it better. God's law did a wrong thing. What happened here? So what makes Jesus angry? He turns over the money tables. The men with the money scatters their coins. Here's the kids' book says it the right way. Also, he makes a whip from ropes and drives all the animals out of the temple. and he commands the men who are selling doves, take them out of here and stop making my Father's house a place for making a lot of money. So they took that part out of the adult version, but they left it in the kids version. Now, in case you're wondering, I went to John. There's the four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Did you see that all? It didn't switch, did it? Matthew, Mark. This is Mark. There it is. Mark. Luke. There, Luke switched. Luke and John. Probably this happened because it's in all four Gospels. Like, this event happened where Jesus was an apostate. He went into the assembly of his day, the religious. It'd be like I hate to say it, but some of the brothers, Rick Fear, and he's one of the stars in my mind. He goes right up there to these assemblies, right into the Bethel headquarters with the pickets. But it reminds me of some of the brothers. When I was in the organization back in the 80s, we were at the big district assembly, and apostates would come in, and all the brothers would circle, like 50 brothers would circle the one person that's protesting. And then this protester would walk around the assembly with this swarm of bees around and they wouldn't touch him. They weren't allowed to touch him, because I got to work on security one year, and they debriefed us on how they handle apostates. So it's funny that now I'm on this side of the fence. I'm one of the apostates, so I know what would happen if I went into that assembly. They don't touch you, so you can't press an assault charge. And if you touch them, you could be charged with assault. So you can walk normally, but they swarm around you, 50 brothers, and they walk with you. And they leave you space, and they walk you out the door, slowly out the door. They allow you a little bit of passage. They don't fight you too much. And they'll call the police too. So it's interesting how they mob you, but no one touches you, no one's trying to hurt you. So I was looking at one of the apostate sites from Norway, and he went and he said he was outside with the sign, and he got sucker punched, he got gut punched, he got punched from the back by Jehovah's Witnesses. So I wouldn't encourage anybody to get out there and risk their lives for this. We can do a lot online. Probably we can reach more people online than we can anywhere else. And online we can help a lot of people. There's a lot of people every day coming out. We get new comments online. Hey, I just woke up, and your videos are good, or this helped me, and so on and so forth. But the point here that I'm making is Jesus cleans the temple out in Matthew. It just kind of says the same thing, the same as the stories say. Then in Mark, it goes on to say that Jesus cleans the temple out there. Same kind of story. They add a few things in. Luke, it's also the account in Luke where Jesus cleans the temple. It doesn't say as much in Luke. He entered the temple, he drove out those who sold, saying to them, "It is written, my house shall be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." And he was teaching daily in the temple. The chief priests and the scribes and the principal men of the people were seeking to destroy him, but they did not find anything they could do, for all the people were hanging on his words, Jesus' words. So it's interesting that if you went into the assembly hall and you caused people not to donate, and that assembly kind of went broke because if you had a chance to speak, that's a problem. You won't get a chance to speak because they swarm around you. But in Jesus' day, he got a chance to speak. And in fact, I guess if we were Christ-like, we would grab some ropes if we went to the assembly and we would make a whip, and we would whip those brothers that are trying to surround us, whip them with the rope. So we would get on the stage, get a hold of the mic somehow, get into their sound system somehow. And you would drive out the money changers. You would go into that room and you'd drive them all out. I think today you'd go to jail and you would probably get charged with something. You'd get charged. You'd be the bad guy today. So that's what happened back in Jesus' day. He was the bad guy, and the chief priests, the scribes, and the principal men of the people were seeking to destroy him, and they did. But you see, they couldn't find anything they could do, really, because Jesus didn't do anything illegal. He just drove out those money changers. They were cheating people, and they were using God's name to make money, and he didn't like that. Now, the next gospel is Mark. Now, Mark mentioned something here, a little bit more. I noticed John said the most here, and this is John. I said Mark. This is from John. And we go down to Jesus cleans out the temple. This was the Passover of the Jews, so it was at hand. Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple, he found those who were selling oxen and sheep and pigeons, and the money changers sitting there. And making a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and he poured out the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. And he told those who sold the pigeons, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of trade." His disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house will consume me." So the Jews said to him, "What sign do you show us for doing these things?" And Jesus answered them, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." And the Jews then said, "It has taken 46 years to build this temple, and you will raise it up in 3 days?" But he was speaking about the temple of his body. When therefore he was raised from the dead, his disciples remembered that he had said this, and they believed the scripture and the word that Jesus had spoken. So Jesus, of course, was talking about his body. Yeah. So what happened? Well, when he was in Jerusalem at the Passover feast, many believed in his name, and when they saw the signs that he was doing, and then Jesus on his part did not entrust himself to them because he knew all the people and needed no one to bear witness about a man, for he himself knew what was in a man. So that's just another little part there. So it's interesting how the four Gospels talk about Jesus in this way that he cleaned the temple out. But the adult version didn't talk about it that way. It didn't talk about the whips. So now I'm going to move over to this portion here. I'm just going to take a look here and see if I can change my display capture a bit here. So now, the next question I had for the audience, I guess I could have put the questions out, is how much money does the Watchtower make or process in a year? Does anybody know how much money? Like, is it in the millions, billions, millions? I think that's a good question to do some research on. I think we'll do some more research on that. But I think the answers can be out there, but we'll never know, because I believe the Watchtower has a safe, and they have a lot of money stored in the safe, probably gold. They had a gold mine, and it was a top secret gold mine. And Russell actually lost his life on this working this gold mine. It was on a train on the way back from this gold mine to Pennsylvania that he died. And then Rutherford, when he was in jail, this is interesting. Rutherford was in jail. You know what the biggest thing that was on his mind in jail? The gold mine. His son, who was never, I don't think, ever really a Jehovah's Witness for that matter. Excuse me. His son visited him in jail, and his biggest thing was his son was supposed to hit that gold mine every year, and his son had trouble getting through all the roads driving there and got stuck. But it was interesting, this gold mine and how important it was. But Rutherford ended up with the gold mine. Now I'm going to transfer this over. We're going to look at how Jehovah's Witnesses collect money, and I'm going to see if I can do it this way here. Just hold on. Well, I can go. No. Come back here. There. Transition this over. Now you can see it. So now I'm going to run this video here.
Jehovah's people are generous and want to give. Doing so with the spirit mentioned at 2 Corinthians 9:7, let each one do just as he has resolved in his heart, not grudgingly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. One of many ways we can display this generous spirit is through our financial donations. We are familiar with placing a contribution in the boxes labeled Contributions for the Worldwide Work at our local Kingdom Hall. Recently, the organization has made some changes to allow for donating online. Some have had questions on how to use these new tools. The donation information page on jw.org can be accessed via the JW Library app or on the website. By selecting the country where you live, you can see the donation methods available to you. Different types of donation methods are available in different countries. How have some been able to put this tool to use? In many countries, we can give using a credit or some debit cards via jw.org. Anyone can make donations online by creating an account if they don't already have one. This makes donating simpler both for you and for the organization. Just as many of us already follow the scriptural pattern at 1 Corinthians 16:2, set something aside every week according to our own means, we can do the same with these online tools. You can set up recurring donations so that this is done automatically every month.
My biggest challenge in making donations was remembering to put the donation in the box. But one day I was on the JW website and saw that there was a way to make online donations. And what was even better was that I could program an automatic donation of the same amount every month. So every month I receive a receipt that my donation has gone through. And that makes me very happy because I can help Jehovah every month. And this way, it's easy.
Or perhaps we'd rather have our donation transferred electronically right from our bank account. In some countries, a bank account is provided that will allow you to transfer funds directly to the branch office. Simply use the tools provided by your bank to set up a direct donation to this account.
We can easily go to the jw.org website and use the donations page to donate online directly from our account, just as we would make any other money transfers.
Some prefer to contribute by check or money order. The details on where to mail this type of donation can also be found on jw.org.
Well, each month when I watch JW Broadcasting and see all the things that are going around over the earth, I would like to show them my appreciation for this hard work that the brothers do. And now the way I can do that, since I'm no longer able to do much physically, is by writing them a check and this letter of appreciation.
Other methods of donating might involve charitable planning. We could arrange to give assets at our death through a will, trust, life insurance policy, or retirement plan. During our life or at our death, we could also donate certificates of deposit, stocks and bonds, as well as saleable real estate.
We are living in the days when unexpected events take place, just as the Bible foretold. So we decided to make charitable plans so that our material assets can be used
they
to
really go a
advance
lot of
Jehovah's
work
work.
to get donations.
저도
Every worthwhile thing we have also comes from Jehovah. I feel privileged to return to Jehovah what I originally received from him.
And I think this deep joy in my heart is the very blessing that I receive from Jehovah.
Like, what a bunch of manipulation.
There are many forms of giving. Go to the donation information page to see what options are available in your
Where are
country.
we? They showed this already once, this page. Like, they're really working the people over here.
However, some types of donations typically require planning or additional information. If you have any questions, you can check with your local branch office. Feel free to submit a request for more information, and your local branch office will respond by email within a few days. Or you can call the branch directly using the phone number provided. But what if we wish to continue giving in the ways we have been, or we don't understand how to use these new tools? New tools can be hard to understand at first. But asking for the help of a trusted brother or sister in the congregation can help us take advantage of these tools. Exodus 35:5.
I'm going to just change my display here. So you'll notice, friends, the how the watchtower is going to this kind of a level of this is really manipulation, because the people, like in this picture here, the people that are my age we don't trust these computer programs for donating, and the reason the watchtower wants us to get our money through the computer is because once we do the monthly thing and we say, well, we'll just do $20 a month, or we'll do $50 a month or something, we'll just do that, right? And we forget about it. And then it's forgotten about. And the watchtower every month goes in and gets their money. Every month they goes in and gets their donation. And then we don't have to worry about it. And even if the person dies, you have to be careful. You have to, if you're looking after an estate, you have to get the watchtower off of that. And this is a very dangerous method of making donations if anybody is Jehovah's Witness that's watching this. And I'm assuming most people are not. But anyways, for us that aren't, this shows us the level of the type of work Watchtower is going to get people's money. Let's just watch the rest of this.
Can help us take advantage of these tools. Exodus 35:5 and 21 says, "Take up a contribution for Jehovah from among yourselves. Let everyone with a willing heart bring a contribution for Jehovah, gold, silver, copper. Then everyone whose heart impelled him, and everyone whose spirit incited him, came and brought their contribution for Jehovah."
You notice they're using Old Testament scriptures, Exodus. You see, they'll tell us, well, we're not under the old law, we're not under the old rules. And there is a reason. If we read all of the scriptures here in Exodus, there was a reason they were building a temple and there was certain things happening. But Jehovah's modern day witnesses, if they were going to say, let's be like, who are we to be like? Christ-like? So if we're Christ-like, Christ overturned the tables of money, the gathering. And here the Jehovah's Witnesses are making it so easy that you can just put it on your visa. I had one person online, and that's why I'm showing this. I had one person online that said there's no way that Jehovah's Witnesses are taking people's visas. And they are. You've seen it over, if we go back here a little bit, right here, you notice right here, it's a visa. And you can donate using a credit or a debit card. And do you know how many people use credit cards? Lots of people use credit cards. So if you're using a credit card, then these people run it and they do the monthly thing, and it's monthly, and they think, well, we're getting air miles, or we're getting something off our credit card. So that's a big trick, because there comes a time that maybe you can't afford to pay your credit card, and now you're paying interest, and it's high interest. It's like 24% interest a year on credit card interest. So now God's organization needs people to put it on their credit card and pay interest, high interest on the credit, just so the Watchtower can have that $50, and then they're paying high interest, up to 24% interest. So for those of you out there that the Watchtower makes it easy to get your money. Now let's see, we kind of went ahead here. And now they're using Old Testament scriptures, because if they used New Testament scriptures, they'd see that Jesus is overturning the money tables. But now they want to use Old Testament scriptures.
Let everyone with a willing heart bring a contribution for Jehovah, gold, silver, copper. Then everyone whose heart impelled him, and everyone whose spirit incited him, came and brought their contribution for Jehovah. Just as the Israelites knew what options they had in giving to Jehovah, we want to know the different ways that we can make donations and the tools we can use to do so. Please take time to review these options on the donation information page and use the methods and tools that are best for you. No matter how we choose to donate, we can be confident that just as in the days of Moses, the donations we make support pure worship. And whether we are giving of our time, our energy, or our resources.
So they compare it to Moses, they compare it in the Old Testament, but and then they give this picture here. Everyone was told to bring all their gold and silver in. So now they want everyone's estates. They want people to sign their estates and everything over to build the temple. All Old Testament stuff. Now, if they were looking at Jesus, and we could get into other Jesus scriptures, Bible stories even on that, what did Jesus do? He turned over the money tables. He wasn't for these big crowds, these big assemblies making money off people. And what did Jesus do? He fed the poor people. He stood by the lakeside and he doled out the fish and the bread, and that's how he did it. So here, Jehovah's Witnesses want us, the common people, to come in, pay all, it costs money to go to those assemblies, because when you go to those big assemblies, they announce how much it cost. You know, it costs $15,000 or whatever to run that assembly for the weekend. So everyone's sitting there doing the math. There's only, so many people attending. And you do the math in your head and you figure, well, it's going to cost my family $150 or $40 or whatever it cost. And then they get up and say, well, remember, if you have extra, give us extra, because the woman beside you who has no husband and kids, she can't afford to give for all her kids to pay for the seating and whatever. And so you're sitting there and you feel obligated. And sometimes, boy, in them days, if there was a visa, I would have been using my visa. Good thing there was no visa, because I would have used it when I was in it. But now they've made it so they can get you on your visa, and they guilt you into it at these assemblies, and we all know it. You're online, we all know it. So those of you that are not Jehovah's Witnesses, they are not it's not Christ-like. Christ overturned the money tables at these assemblies. It's assembly time now. It's coming up here. Everyone's getting ready for the assemblies. They're booking their rooms. You have to buy parking up here where we live. You not only book your rooms, but you have to buy your parking ticket. And you have to have a vehicle, or you have to carpool, or somehow get down there, public transit. Again, where I lived, I had a family. My family filled up the car and then some with luggage, and we planned a three-day venture. So that was kind of our holiday for the year, and that's kind of how it was done. But it wasn't much of a holiday. It was The kids were young and they were crying all the time, and it was just stressful. For a husband, like for me as the breadwinner, it was very, very expensive, very stressful. It was a long drive. It was not relaxing. The kids were miserable, and they ran that thing way too long. They said these hour-long prayers at the end. I don't know why they'd summarize the whole assembly in a prayer, but that's just the way it was. And Jesus, he wasn't for it. He wasn't for people to get broke. He was for people. He stood on the hill, and the people all came up and wanted to listen to him, and they even got something to eat because he was so interesting to listen to. They stood there for hours and hours, and they got hungry, and he even fed them. You've never had that at a Watchtower assembly. Never. So anyways, they don't use Jesus. They don't use modern day Jesus New Testament examples, because Jesus wasn't for it. He was an apostate against these religious festivals. He turned over the money tables. He didn't like it. And so there was a new way. And the new way was love. And you couldn't really make a religion on love. So then Paul came along and made a religion on it. But during Jesus' time, that he was on earth, and we read the Gospels, and especially if you see it in all four Gospels, you can kind of paint a picture. Because we do know Jesus was a guy that was here on earth. The history attests to that, but there's lots of dispute over what happened next and how religion started. And we'll cover off on that. We won't cover off on that today, but we'll cover off on that coming up. I wanted to cover off on a few of these pictures of Jesus. This is what JW.org pictures, in case you're, you haven't seen it, but Watchtower Online. And this is Jesus turning over the money tables and coming to the big assembly, figure of the big district assembly, the religion of his day, the Jews. For me, it would be coming to the Jehovah's Witness convention. I would like to do this. But I'm sure I would go to jail for this. Like, I would like to go into that room where they're counting all the money and just turn over all the tables, and the boxes when they're out there, they come out and monitor the boxes. They have to. I would like to just go and just smash over the boxes, but you wouldn't get far, you see, and then they would put you in jail. So Jesus got out of there. He turned it over. He made a big scene, and it wasn't long after they hung him up. They killed him over money, and it was all over money. Don't kid yourself. So, and the religions of today are money. It's all big bucks, big bucks. I like some of the pictures. Different, but when I look at pictures online, the Jehovah's Witness do have some of the nicest pictures. That tells me they put a lot into their art. Like, they have they put a lot of money into their art studio, into trying to emulate this. And now we were just watching one of the Watchtower movies coming out. They call it the Watchtower movie. Maybe it's going to come out at the assembly or something. And they're putting a lot of work into these movies now to convince people that they're the truth and that they're God's true way. But on the other hand, if you plug in Jehovah's Witnesses into Google, what comes up, it's not nice. So try it. So now I want to move on quickly because we're going to close down here shortly. There's some other programs, I think. Now, there's a Christadelphians. Have you ever heard of Christadelphians and Jehovah's Witnesses? What's the difference between Christadelphians? Now, Christadelphians, we can talk about them. They kind of came about just before Rutherford or Russell. They came about in the 1830s. Christadelphians. And the best place, where can we learn about them quick here? Let's see. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up is because a lot of the sites were comparing Jehovah's Witnesses to Christadelphians. And I went to the Jehovah's Witness site, and they did a long article on Christadelphianism of the God or of men. And they really knocked the Christadelphians. Now, the Christadelphians, they're very close to Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, let me just see where I had that. Christadelphians believe that Jesus will physically come back again to the earth to establish God's kingdom on earth, while JWs believe Jesus will not come back. It's one of them. Now, JW Facts talks about religions similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. Christadelphians comes up. This is the first time I heard of Christadelphianism. Was today, just doing a little bit of research. So they were very, very, in fact, they're active today. There's 50,000 worldwide. It's kind of like Bible students in my mind. Very similar to Jehovah's Witnesses. So the point being is that Jehovah's Witnesses are not the only ones with similar beliefs. There was a lot of different movements with similar beliefs. And Christadelphians is one of them. It says there's approximately 50,000 of them in around 120 countries. It started in the United Kingdom, asserting the Bible. They assert the Bible as their sole basis of their beliefs, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. Christadelphians differ from mainstream Christianity in a number of doctrinal areas. For example, they reject the Trinity, same as Jehovah's Witnesses, and the immortality of the soul. I believe Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe the soul will live forever. I'm not sure. No, they don't, because they don't believe in hellfire, and they don't believe in everlasting torment either way, so they don't believe in it. So, believing that these to be corruptions of original Christian teachings. That's what Jehovah's Witnesses believe. So the Christadelphians, they were initially found predominantly in the developed English-speaking world, but expanded in developing countries after the Second World War, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. Congregations are traditionally referred to as ecclesiases, however you say that, Ecclesiastes, kind of. So the fella that started it traces back to 1805 to 1871, similar to probably the Mormons, a little before Russell's time. Immigrated from England. Russell's parents came from England to North America, 1832. Following a near shipwreck, he vowed to find the truth about life and personal Bible study, so that's how they all find God. So it's a restoration movement in the United States. So yeah, now I'll just read you a little bit of what the Jehovah's Witnesses say about Christadelphianism. They say, "Do you believe in the Trinity?" "No." "Rather," the religious stranger replied, "in the eternal torment." "No." They go on. So here's what they say. Christadelphians claim to base their answers to such questions on their acceptance of Bible as wholly inspired. They encourage personal study of religion. As a result, they usually know far more about their religion than do most other professed Christians, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. Among them, there is no salaried clergy, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. Each ecclesia or congregation elects its own serving brethren for a period of 3 years to take care of matters, and all these must be males, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses, although there is no objection to women contributing to their religious periodicals. The most important feature of their way of worship is weekly Sunday celebration of the Lord's Supper. Christadelphians do not vote, nor they do not join unions of any kind, just like Jehovah's Witnesses. They are opposed to smoking, divorcing, going to court, marrying outsiders, just like JWs. According to their strictness, they frown on worldly amusements, like JWs. And the name Christadelphians means of Christ's brothers. So that would be the anointed or the anointed ones. And was adopted by their founder, Dr. John Thomas. So, 4 basic shortcomings. So now here we get to the Jehovah's Witnesses knocking down their fellow brethren, who's almost just like them. Well, here they're saying there's 4 things that they do wrong. The tenor of the foregoing may cause some to conclude that Christadelphian is indeed of God. However, as we examine it more closely, we find it contains such gross shortcomings and false doctrines that it simply could not be of God, but must be of men. So let's look at the gross doctrines. Christadelphianism, first of all, comes short in all it knows, nothing of issue of universal sovereign, nor does one become aware from reading its many publications that the vindication of Jehovah's name is more important than the salvation of human creatures. So they're saying that because the Christadelphians worship Jesus, they follow Jesus more so, and they don't pay as much homage to Jehovah, that they must be false religion. So these truths, So they go on to talk about it. They go on a lot to talk about all the shortcomings. Look at all the, I'm going to just go on. And then they go on to talk about product of human reasoning. I think the Jehovah's Witness, this is back in 1962, I think they were really worried about this organization. And then they go on to insult them and say the personality of Satan and the demons. So now among the arguments used by Christadelphians against personality of Satan and the demons is that, and blah, 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 they go on to talk. So they put them in that category. Jesus the ransomer, the heavenly kingdom. Wow, they went to the 10th degree. So at the very end it says, yes, at first glance, Christadelphianism appears to be of God. And that's just like at first glance, a Jehovah's Witness religion appears to be like God. So let's turn this on them, but not upon close examination. But when you closely examine the Jehovah's Witnesses, you realize it's not of God. So it's ignoring the importance of the name Jehovah and the issue of universal sovereign, its glaring of unity, its failure to carry out Jesus' command to preach the good news, and it's ignoring the scriptural hope for mankind in general. It's denial of Jesus' prehuman existence. It's denial of the personality of Satan and his demons. It's denial of corresponding ransom. It's denial of the heavenly spiritual nature of God's kingdom. And you see how the Jehovah's Witnesses take another competitive religion who's very close to them and just rip them apart. And that's what they did here. And that's how we were taught as Jehovah's Witnesses all our lives. This is the kind of crap we read. And I don't know if we all believe it, but now that you look at it from a different angle and you go to other sources, this is just a religion that's very worried that their members might look at Christadelphianism as something close to God.
Oh, just a second.
Looks like we've got a fire alarm going. Sorry about that. We have forest fires here. So outside it's quite dark. I'm just going to go back here. And I might just pull it. Let me just see what I have on my display capture here. But yeah, it's we've been battling forest fires up here in Canada. It's really bad. The smoke is so bad today that it's coming in through the windows, tripping the smoke detectors. Everyone feels kind of lethargic. So you don't do much. I don't know. So right now I don't see the news, or I would show it to you here, what's going on. For a lot of you folks, you're down in the U.S., so. Where am I? News. Here's news. I'll see. I was looking at it last night. Alberta fire updates. Yeah, this is one. Here's one BC. Here's what we're dealing with. I'll pull this one up. There, I'll just do that.
City of more than 20,000 people preparing to leave at a moment's notice as smoke and A city of more than 20,000 people preparing to leave at a moment's notice as smoke and flames spread near Fort St. John. For now, the Stoddard Creek wildfire, which has grown to more than 18 square kilometers, about 3 times the size of Stanley Park, is just one of 5 wildfires of note burning within the Prince George Fire District, and is one of 2 burning near Fort St. John.
Obviously, this alert right now is primarily out of an abundance of caution to ensure that people are prepared, if required, to leave at a moment's notice. So this is an opportunity for you to make sure that you have your clothing packed, any necessary medication or paperwork, pet supplies, and an opportunity for all of that to be ready to go if needed.
The alert comes just hours after hundreds of evacuees, many of them from the Blueberry River First Nation, were told to pack essential items, valuables, and pets and head to Fort St. John. If the alert is upgraded to an order, it will be one of the largest single evacuation orders due to wildfire in provincial history. BC Wildfire Service says over 70% of the fires burning in BC are human-caused.
There is the risk of an open fire use getting away. There is the risk if you are using an off-road vehicle in very dry off-road areas. And so we're asking folks to consider those conditions.
For now, authorities are telling people of Fort St. John not to panic, and all evacuees who are already registered in the town can stay there for now.
Yeah, so that's one of the fires that's going on. The other fire is in Alberta.
There's lots.
And there's a lot of them, but that just gives you an example of what's happening here in our province. It's and it's all over the world as the climate changes. They're looking at the climate now and they're understanding it a little more, and they're saying it's 7 years. It's reciprocal with 7 years. And again, I wonder where the 7 comes from. I remember what the Bible story where one of the was it Daniel or someone was told the ruler of Babylon or something to store up grain for 7 years because there was 7 years of famine and then seven years of good times, 7 years of famine. So maybe it's because the earth is reciprocal. It does that. It works in 7s. But every year up here, before we get rains, we seem to get these wildfires. And now with ATVs, I think the governments are going to have to enforce more rules on these things, especially before the rains come, because that's what causes a lot of fires. They get out in the bush and the mufflers get really hot. I used to own one, and I got stuck in the peat moss in the bog with mine, and it started smoldering, and we had to bring water in and put it out, because it was so dry that year that the peat moss, so we stopped using them ourselves. And peat moss, it's just, the peat moss in early land development, you go out in the bush and the hills, there's lots of dry fibrous material that'll burn. But that brings an end to our program. We're 6:20. I really appreciate you guys being online, just looking at the comments. We talked a bit about Jesus and the assemblies coming up and really what kind of a guy Jesus was. I think Jesus wasn't the guy that everyone thinks he is. I think I don't think he would be who Watchtower thinks he is. If he came back in man form, it would be interesting. But anyways, folks, I don't have an outro song or anything to give you, but all I can say is keep living your life with love. I love all of you guys. You guys are excellent subscribers. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It does help our channel, because as the channel builds in subscriptions, it's able to grow better. If it just has viewers, it's good. We do need a certain amount of viewers, but we do need the subscriptions. And we realize that subscriptions are temporary, that maybe you subscribe for a while, and then after a while you don't need the JW community. You've moved on. Maybe you're running a butterfly farm or something. I don't know. But, we realize these things are temporary. But while you're looking, subscribe and give us a like. We always really appreciate that. So next week, hopefully we'll have our music introduced back into our night talk. And I will learn the studio a little better, so hopefully it wasn't too bad tonight. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.